He didn't notice her beauty. He noticed her fear, the way her hands trembled around the roses, the way her breath shortened when she stepped closer. And in that moment, she stopped being invisible. The mistake happened the moment she stepped through the iron gates. They closed behind her with a sound too final to ignore. Warm night air carried the scent of roses, too many of them, heavy and sweet, mingling with polished stone, expensive cologne, and something colder beneath it all. Power. The kind you didn't see, only felt, pressing against your ribs until breathing required effort. She tightened her grip on the bouquet. White roses, perfect, untouched, ordered hours ago by someone whose name was never spoken casually. Her fingers trembled anyway. Just deliver, she reminded herself silently, in and out. No eye contact, no questions. That was the rule. The rule had kept her safe since she started running errands for places she pretended not to recognize. Tonight, the rule felt thin. Her heels clicked across marble too clean to belong to a home. Men in dark suits stood spaced with deliberate precision, their attention everywhere at once. Conversations softened as she passed, not stopping, never stopping, but shifting, like water around a blade. She lowered her gaze. Wrong place, she thought. I don't belong here. The room opened wide ahead of her. Vaulted ceilings, long tables dressed in black linen, crystal glasses catching low amber light. A gathering without music, without laughter. The quiet hummed, deliberate and controlled. At the center of it all stood the Mafia Boss. He wasn't loud. He didn't move much. He didn't need to. He listened while others spoke, his posture relaxed in a way that made the tension in the room feel intentional, chosen. His hands rested loosely in front of him, cufflinks catching light when he shifted his wrists by fractions, not inches. She had seen men like him on screens. On headlines she never finished reading. Seeing him in person was different. The air seemed to wait on him. She took another step forward, heart beating too fast, breath too shallow. Her pulse thudded in her ears as if warning her she had already been noticed. Don't look up. The bouquet shook, just slightly. Enough. A man near the far table paused mid-sentence. Another stopped tapping his glass. Silence rippled, not sudden but curious. She felt it before she saw it, his attention. It landed on her the way shadows settle at dusk, slow, inevitable. She didn't need to look to know his gaze had found her. Her skin prickled, every instinct tightening like a wire pulled too far. She swallowed. Focus. Deliver the roses. Leave. Her shoes echoed too loudly as she crossed the remaining distance. The weight of the room pressed closer with every step, as if the walls themselves leaned in to watch. Someone cleared their throat. No one spoke. She reached the table nearest him, hands still trembling despite her effort to still them. The roses smelled sharper now, overwhelming. Her throat tightened. Delivery, she said softly. Too softly. Her voice barely reached the edge of the table. The Mafia Boss didn't move, didn't speak. He simply watched her. It wasn't hunger in his gaze, not interest in the way men usually looked at women. It was assessment, precision. The quiet calculation of someone who noticed everything, including things people tried to hide. Like fear. Her fingers tightened reflexively around the stems, thorns pressing into her palm. The sting grounded her. She welcomed it. Eyes down, she told herself. Don't let him. Trembling, he said. One word, low, calm, certain. Her breath caught. She hadn't realized she was shaking that visibly. Heat flooded her face as the silence thickened, every pair of eyes shifting between them. Her instinct screamed to apologize, to explain, to disappear. She said nothing. Slowly, he stepped closer. Not hurried, not threatening, controlled. Each step felt measured, as if he were counting the distance. Not for her, but for everyone else in the room. Men straightened without being told. Conversations died completely. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint line near his temple, a scar, old and pale. close enough to smell the leather of his watch strap, the clean sharpness of his cologne, close enough that she had to fight the urge to step back. "Look at me," he said. 2 words, no force behind them. Her body obeyed before her mind could argue. Their eyes met. The world narrowed. His gaze held hers steadily, unblinking. Dark eyes, not cold, not warm, observant, patient, as if he had all the time in the world, and she had none. Fear flickered across her face before she could stop it. He saw it. She knew he did. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room. The air felt tighter, charged. "Who sent you?" he asked. She hesitated. That hesitation cost her. His head tilted slightly, not in impatience, but in confirmation, as if he had already reached the answer and was watching her catch up. Her voice faltered. She swallowed and tried again. "A florist." A lie, a small one, a necessary one. The Mafia boss's gaze flicked briefly to the roses, then back to her face. White roses, apology, respect, warning. Interesting choice. "Name," he said. Her heart slammed hard enough to make her dizzy. She gave it. The name meant nothing to him. She could tell. But the way she said it, quiet, careful, braced, meant everything. He looked at her hands then, at the faint red marks where thorns had broken skin, at the way her fingers trembled despite her effort to still them. "You're afraid," he said, not a question. Her throat tightened. She nodded once, before she could stop herself. The room seemed to hold its breath. The Mafia boss studied her a moment longer. Then he reached out and took the bouquet from her hands. His fingers brushed hers. The contact was brief, controlled. It sent a shock through her chest anyway. He turned, setting the roses on the table without ceremony. Then he looked back at her. "Why?" he asked. She opened her mouth. No answer came, because fear had always kept her alive, because places like this swallowed people who didn't belong, because she had learned long ago to recognize danger before it spoke her name, because something about the way he watched her felt too precise to be safe. "I just deliver," she said finally. He studied her again, longer this time. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled, just barely, not with warmth but with recognition. "Clear the room," the Mafia boss said. The effect was immediate. Chairs scraped back, footsteps moved without question, doors opened. The room emptied with disciplined efficiency, leaving only the low hum of the lights and the echo of her pulse. She stood frozen, alone with him. He turned back to her slowly, hands resting at his sides. "Fear like yours," he said quietly, "doesn't come from delivering flowers." Her breath shook. "And yet," he continued, gaze steady, "you walked through my gates anyway." He stepped closer again, not invading, observing, as if she were a puzzle he had just realized mattered. "Tell me," the Mafia boss said, voice low and calm, "what you're really running from." Her heart pounded, and for the first time since she entered the gates, she understood something terrifying. He wasn't interested in the roses. He had noticed her. If stories like this pull you into the quiet moments, the ones where choices feel heavy, take a second to subscribe and share. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most. The door shut with a soft click that sounded louder than a gunshot in her mind. Not because it was violent, because it was final. The room the Mafia boss led her into wasn't a dungeon or a dramatic chamber built for intimidation. It was worse than that. It was normal. A private office with clean lines and quiet luxury. Dark wood, a single painting that looked too expensive to name, a leather chair positioned like a throne without trying to be. The light was warm. The air smelled faintly of cedar and black tea. A place where decisions were made calmly, where fear wasn't shouted, it was measured. She stood just inside the doorway, hands clasped tight to stop them from shaking. Her palms stung where the thorn had broken skin. The Mafia Boss didn't sit. He remained standing, angled slightly toward her, as if giving her space while also making it clear she didn't have any. Name, he said again. She'd already told him, but this wasn't repetition. This was confirmation. Alina, she said, voice steadier than she felt. He watched her mouth form the syllables as if he could hear the truth behind them. Then, without raising his voice, he spoke to someone behind her. Bring her in. Alina's breath caught. Her spine went rigid. She hadn't heard the door open, hadn't heard footsteps approach. The silence in this house was trained. The door moved again, and a man in a dark suit appeared, one of the silent ones. He wasn't rough, he wasn't threatening, he was careful. Because he wasn't holding a weapon, he was guiding a child. A small girl with a cardigan too big for her shoulders and curls that looked like they'd been hastily smoothed down. She clutched a stuffed rabbit by one ear, its fur worn thin like it had been loved through difficult nights. Her eyes lifted the moment she saw Alina. Mina, Alina whispered, the name breaking out of her like a confession. Relief hit her so hard her knees went weak. Mina rushed to her, small hands grabbing Alina's coat as if to anchor herself to something real. They said I couldn't stay in the car, Mina blurted, eyes wide. They said it wasn't safe. Alina's throat tightened. I told you to stay. I did, Mina protested, clinging harder. But then a man knocked on the window and I got scared. Alina's heart sank. She had left Mina in the back seat for only a few minutes. Only long enough to hand off flowers and get paid. Only long enough to keep Mina from seeing the kind of place this was. And now the Mafia Boss had brought her sister into his private office like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mina, unaware of the weight around her, looked past Alina and stared at the tall man across the room. Her gaze traveled up, up, up. Then she whispered, not quietly at all. He's the big man. Alina stiffened. Mina, she warned. But Mina wasn't looking at her anymore. Children didn't know how to pretend they weren't curious. They didn't know how to play safe. They only knew what they saw. The Mafia Boss didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He didn't soften. He simply observed Mina the way he observed everything else, without rushing, without blinking, as if stillness was a language he spoke fluently. How old? He asked. Alina's chest tightened. She's 6, she answered, because silence felt dangerous. Not. Mina lifted her rabbit and tucked it under her chin like a shield. Her eyes stayed on the Mafia Boss, unafraid in the way only children could be, because they didn't fully understand what they should fear. The Mafia Boss shifted his gaze back to Alina. And you, he said, how old are you when you learn to tremble? Alina's pulse spiked. She held Mina a little closer. Don't talk to her, she said quickly, too quickly. She's tired. I wasn't talking to her. His voice stayed calm. I was talking to you. Alina swallowed. The room felt smaller. Not because it was, because he was in it. The Mafia Boss stepped forward, only one step, and the men in the hallway went still, as if they'd felt the air change. Alina didn't move. She couldn't. Mina's small arms were wrapped around her waist, and Alina would have sooner stepped into fire than move in a way that made Mina feel unsafe. You brought roses, the Mafia Boss said, eyes flicking briefly to the thorn marks on Alina's hand. White. Alina's mouth went dry. He knew what they meant, or he knew enough to understand the message behind them. Someone sent you, he continued, not a florist. Alina tried to breathe through the panic climbing her throat. I needed money, she said. A half-truth was still safer than the truth. It was a delivery. The Mafia Boss's gaze sharpened, not in anger, but in focus. You needed money, he repeated, as if tasting the shape of the excuse. Mina shifted beside Alina, rubbing her face into Alina's coat. Alina felt her resolve harden. If the Mafia Boss was going to tear apart her lies, he would do it carefully, quietly, in pieces. But she would not let him pull Mina into it. I'm not here to cause trouble, Alina said. I didn't know. His eyes cut to hers. You knew, he said simply. Her breath caught. He wasn't accusing her. He was stating something he had already decided was true. Alina's fingers curled against Mina's back. She fought to keep her voice steady. "I knew what people call you," she admitted. "I didn't know you'd be there, in the room." "And yet you walked through my gates anyway," he said again, like that fact mattered more than anything else. Alina forced herself to meet his gaze. "I didn't have a choice." A beat of silence. The Mafia boss's expression didn't shift, but something about his stillness changed, like the air had moved 1 degree colder. "Everyone has a choice," he said. Alina's jaw tightened. "That's easy to say," she snapped before she could stop herself, "when your choices don't include keeping a child alive." The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Not because she'd spoken with edge, because she'd revealed too much. The room went so quiet she could hear Mina's little breaths against her coat. The Mafia boss looked at Mina again, then back to Alina. "Alive," he repeated softly. Alina swallowed. "You're afraid," he said, "because someone made you afraid." Alina's heart slammed. She didn't answer. The Mafia boss didn't press her with anger. He pressed her with patience, the kind that cornered you without raising a hand. He walked to his desk, picked up something small, then returned. Alina's muscles tensed until she realized what it was. A tissue. He held it out, not to her face, just within reach. Alina stared at it, confused. Then she realized her hand was bleeding slightly where the thorn had torn skin. Her cheeks burned. She hadn't noticed. She had been too focused on not falling apart. Mina noticed. She took the tissue from the Mafia boss carefully, then turned and pressed it to Alina's palm with great seriousness. "There," Mina whispered, like she was fixing something that mattered. Alina's throat constricted. Something sharp and unexpected, flickered behind the Mafia boss's eyes. It was gone in an instant, but it had been there. He turned his attention back to Alina. "Tell me," he said quietly, "who is hunting you?" Alina's mouth opened. No sound came out. The truth was a blade. Once spoken, it couldn't be sheathed again. "I can't," she managed. The Mafia boss's gaze didn't waver. "You can," he corrected. "You won't." Alina felt her heartbeat in her teeth. If she said the name, she couldn't take it back. If she admitted what she knew, she wouldn't just be a frightened woman delivering flowers. She would be a problem. And in this world, problems got erased. Mina leaned her head against Alina's side, half asleep already, rabbit tucked under her arm. Alina's chest tightened with something that felt like desperation. "I didn't come here for you," she whispered. The Mafia boss's eyes narrowed slightly. Alina forced the words out. "I came because someone told me if I didn't, she'd disappear." Silence. Then softly, "Who told you?" Alina's throat tightened. "A man," she said. "He called from a private number. He knew Mina's name. He knew where we live. He said I had to deliver the roses. Exactly here, exactly tonight, or I'd regret it." The Mafia boss watched her for a long moment. Then he said, "Why my house?" Alina's eyes stung. "Because you're the only one they're afraid of." The truth landed between them like a dropped match. The Mafia boss didn't react the way she expected. No smugness, no pride. Just a quiet stillness that felt like a door closing somewhere deep inside him. "You were used," he said. Alina lifted her chin, stubborn even while her hands shook. "I know." "And you still walked in," he said again, his voice lower now. "With her waiting outside." Alina's shame burned hot. "I didn't have help," she said. "I didn't have money. I didn't have anyone. I'm not from your world." The Mafia boss's gaze moved over her, her cheap coat, her scuffed shoes, the way she stood like she was bracing for impact. Then he said something that made her blood run cold. "Someone wanted you seen." Alina blinked. "What?" He didn't answer immediately. He stepped toward the door and spoke quietly to the man outside. "Trace the call," he said. "Now." Alina's stomach twisted. The Mafia boss turned back to her. "They didn't send you for flowers," he said. They sent you to my doorstep because they wanted to force my attention. Alina's skin went cold. No, she whispered, I don't matter. The Mafia boss's gaze sharpened. You matter, he said, calm and absolute, because you're leverage. Alina's breath hitched. Mina stirred in her arms, blinking sleepily. Her eyes drifted to the Mafia boss again, curious, innocent, still unafraid. Then, in the soft, careless way children asked questions that shattered worlds, Mina tilted her head and said, Are you my daddy? Alina froze. The room went still. Even the Mafia boss, for the first time, didn't look like he had the answer ready. And before Alina could speak, before she could correct Mina, before she could gather the air to breathe, the office door opened. A man stepped in quickly, eyes serious. Mafia boss, he said, voice low, urgent. We have a problem. The Mafia boss didn't look away from Mina, not yet, but his voice when it came was quiet and final. She's not leaving. Not a request, a decision. The room changed the moment those words settled. She's not leaving. They weren't spoken loudly. They weren't meant to be. They carried weight because they were absolute. Alina felt it immediately, the shift in the air, the tightening of something unseen. Decisions were already unfolding beyond the walls of the office, rippling outward through men who moved without asking questions. The Mafia boss finally looked away from Mina. Slowly, deliberately. What kind of problem? He asked. The man at the door hesitated, just long enough to reveal this wasn't routine. A visitor, he said, unscheduled, insists he won't wait. Alina's pulse spiked. The Mafia boss's gaze flicked to her face, not searching, not accusing, measuring. Name, he said. The man swallowed. Luca Moretti. The name hit Alina like ice water. Her breath left her lungs in a rush she couldn't stop. No, 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 no. Her knees threatened to buckle. The Mafia boss noticed instantly. He didn't ask who Luca Moretti was. He didn't need to. He watched Alina's reaction instead. The way color drained from her face, the way her grip on Mina tightened until the child let out a small sound of protest. That told him everything. Bring him to the east sitting room, the Mafia boss said calmly, and don't let him see anything else. The man nodded and disappeared. Alina shook her head, panic rising fast now. I can't be here, she said, words tumbling over each other. If he's here, it means exactly what I think it means, the Mafia boss said, cutting her off, not sharply, but decisively. Sit. I can't. You can, he said, voice low, and you will. It wasn't a threat. It was containment. Alina lowered herself into the chair without realizing she'd moved. Mina climbed into her lap, curling instinctively into the hollow of her body, rabbit tucked under her chin. The Mafia boss crouched in front of them, bringing himself to Mina's level. Mina, he said gently, the softness in his voice unexpected. Do you like drawing? Mina blinked, nodded. He turned, picked up a slim tablet from the desk, and handed it to her. The screen lit with color. You can sit by the window and draw, he said, as long as you want. Mina glanced at Alina, seeking permission. Alina forced a smile that felt like it might crack. Go on, she whispered. I'll be right here. Reluctantly, Mina slid off her lap and moved to the window seat, immediately distracted by bright shapes and colors. The Mafia boss straightened. Then he looked at Alina again. Tell me, he said quietly, what you didn't want to say before. Alina's hands shook. She pressed them together. Luca Moretti isn't just a man, she said. He's a fixer. He cleans up problems for people who don't want to be seen doing it. The Mafia boss's eyes sharpened, interest flickering. And now he's here, he said. Alina nodded, which means this wasn't about the roses, or the delivery. No, he agreed. It was about exposure. The realization made her stomach churn. I didn't know he'd come himself, she whispered. I thought he'd just watch, from a distance. The Mafia boss gave a quiet, humorless exhale. When men like that come in person, he said, it's because they want to be seen. Alina's gaze darted to Mina, drawing quietly by the window. He saw her, Alina said, panic edging her voice. He knows she exists now. That's what he wanted. The Mafia boss turned slightly, blocking Luca Moretti's potential line of sight should the man get too close. Not quite, he said. He wanted me to see her. Alina's heart slammed. She's leverage, she whispered. Yes, the Mafia boss said, and so are you. A knock sounded at the door. Once. Controlled. The Mafia boss didn't move immediately. He leaned closer to Alina, lowering his voice until it was meant only for her. You're not invisible anymore, he said, which means running won't work. Alina closed her eyes briefly. She had known this moment would come. Just not like this. Not here. Bring him in, the Mafia boss said. Luca Moretti entered with the confidence of a man who believed he belonged anywhere he stood. He wore an expensive coat and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mafia boss, Luca said smoothly. It's been a while. The Mafia boss didn't return the greeting. His silence was deliberate. Luca's gaze drifted. To the room, the furniture, the windows. Then it landed on Alina. And he smiled wider. There you are, Luca said lightly. You look tense. Alina didn't answer. The Mafia boss stepped forward, positioning himself subtly between Luca and the window seat where Mina sat. What do you want? He asked. Luca lifted his hands. Conversation, transparency. He glanced again toward the window. A child, he added. That's new? Alina's nails dug into her palms. She's none of your concern, the Mafia boss said. Luca chuckled. On the contrary, she's the most interesting thing in this room. The air went sharp. The Mafia boss didn't raise his voice. You have 5 minutes, he said. Use them wisely. Luca shrugged. I was hired to deliver a message. Simple. To her, he said, nodding toward Alina, and to you. Alina's heart raced. What message? The Mafia boss asked. Luca's smile thinned. That hiding is expensive, and protection comes with conditions. The Mafia boss's gaze didn't waver. Whose conditions? He asked. Luca tilted his head. Someone who prefers not to compete with you directly. Alina's stomach dropped. So instead, Luca continued, they thought they'd borrow your attention. The Mafia boss's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You used her, he said. Yes, Luca replied easily. She was accessible, afraid, motivated. Alina flinched. And the child? The Mafia boss asked. Luca's eyes glittered. Insurance? Silence fell heavy. The Mafia boss took one step forward. The room seemed to contract around it. You don't threaten children, he said quietly. Luca raised a brow. I didn't. I implied. The Mafia boss studied him for a long moment. Then, you're done here, he said. Luca laughed softly. You think so? He reached into his pocket and placed a phone on the desk, sliding it toward Alina. Choice, Luca said. You're good at those, aren't you? Alina stared at the phone, dread curling tight in her chest. Take her, Luca said, nodding toward Mina. Disappear again. New city, new names. We'll forget you ever existed. Her breath hitched. And if she stays? Alina whispered. Luca's smile faded. Then everyone gets very interested in who she is, he said. Who she belongs to. The Mafia boss didn't react, but Alina felt it, the fury beneath his restraint tightly leashed. Luca stepped back. You have 24 hours, he said. Call the number on the phone. He turned toward the door. Oh, he added lightly, if you choose wrong, don't expect him to save you. The door closed behind him. Silence flooded the room. Alina stared at the phone. Then she shook her head, rising abruptly. I'll go, she said. The words felt like glass in her throat. The Mafia boss turned sharply. No, he said. I will, she insisted. I won't make her a target. She moved toward Mina, heart breaking with every step. The Mafia boss watched her, really watched her for the first time. not as leverage, not as a problem, as a woman making a choice she hated. Leaving doesn't make her safe, he said quietly. It just makes you alone. Alina lifted Mina into her arms. It makes her alive, she said. The mafia boss's face was still, but something in his eyes looked devastated. Alina turned toward the door. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She froze. Slowly, she looked down and read the message. You just made this so much easier. Her blood ran cold, and behind her the mafia boss went very, very still. The message burned into Alina's vision long after the screen dimmed. You just made this so much easier. Her hands went numb. For a moment, the world tilted, sound fading, breath stuttering, as the weight of it settled. Leaving wasn't an escape. It was permission. She hadn't chosen safety. She had chosen predictability. The mafia boss took the phone from her without asking. His thumb moved once, twice. Then he looked at the screen with an expression so still it bordered on unreadable. They were waiting, he said quietly. Alina's throat tightened. I thought if I left... They would follow, he finished. Yes. She closed her eyes. Shame rose sharp and heavy. I didn't know what else to do. The mafia boss didn't contradict her. Instead, he turned and spoke to the room. Not loudly, but with the kind of authority that carried through walls. Lock the perimeter, he said. No movement without my word. A low murmur of acknowledgement answered from somewhere unseen. Mina stirred in Alina's arms, eyes fluttering open. Mina, the mafia boss said gently, do you feel tired? She nodded sleepily. Good, he said. We're going somewhere quieter. Alina stiffened. Where? Safe, he replied. For now. He didn't say mine. He didn't say under my control. But the meaning was there. Within minutes, the house shifted into motion. Quiet. Efficient. Doors opening and closing with soft precision. Men moving without urgency, because urgency was for people who didn't plan ahead. They were escorted through a side corridor Alina hadn't seen before. The walls were plain here, utilitarian. No luxury, no show. The mafia boss walked slightly ahead, his presence forming a barrier without trying. Outside, a black vehicle waited with its engine already running. Alina hesitated at the door. This doesn't mean I owe you, she said, words stiff with pride and fear. The mafia boss paused, turned. I know, he said. That answer unsettled her more than resistance would have. The drive was silent. Mina fell asleep almost immediately, her head heavy against Alina's shoulder. Alina watched the city pass through darkened windows, her thoughts racing. Every time she had run before, she had done it alone. This time, she was being carried forward by someone else's momentum, and she didn't know whether that made her safer or more trapped. The vehicle slowed. They arrived at a place that looked nothing like a fortress. A quiet house, modest, lights low, tucked between others that gave no hint of importance. The mafia boss exited first, scanning the street with habitual awareness. He opened the door for Alina without ceremony. Inside, the house was warm. Simple furniture, clean lines, no excess. A space designed to disappear rather than impress. A safe house? Alina asked. One of several, he said. He led them to a bedroom already prepared. Soft light, a bed made with careful precision. A small night lamp shaped like a star. Mina stirred, murmuring something unintelligible, then curled instinctively toward the warmth. Alina laid her down gently, brushing curls from her face. Her chest tightened at how peaceful Mina looked here, unaware of the danger circling her existence. When Alina turned, the mafia boss stood in the doorway. Watching, not the room, them. She straightened. You planned this, she said quietly. Yes, he answered. The honesty landed heavier than denial. How long? She asked. Since the roses, he said. Since you trembled. Alina's jaw tightened. You expected me to come back. No, he said. I expected someone to use you. She stared at him. You've been watched, he continued. For months. Her breath caught. By who? Not Moretti, he said. He's a messenger. A professional one. Alina wrapped her arms around herself. So I was never free, she whispered. The Mafia boss shook his head once. You were protected by being unnoticed. That ended tonight. Anger flared through her fear. You could have told me, she said. You could have warned me. And you would have run, he replied calmly. Again. She had no answer for that. Silence stretched between them, broken only by Mina's soft breathing. The Mafia boss moved farther into the room, stopping beside the bed. I've been preparing for this moment, he said. Not because I wanted it, because it was inevitable. Alina met his gaze. You don't even know me. He looked down at Mina. I know enough, he said. You don't apologize for surviving. You don't beg. You make decisions, even bad ones, because you believe they protect her. Her throat tightened. And that makes you dangerous, he added, to the wrong people. Alina let out a shaky breath. What do you want from me? The Mafia boss looked back at her. Nothing, he said. This isn't about us. He gestured gently toward Mina. It's about her. The simplicity of it cracked something in her chest. I don't want to owe you, Alina said. You don't, he replied. This is not leverage, it's responsibility. Her laugh was hollow. You talk about responsibility like it's an option. For me, he said, it is. He moved to the window, checking the street below. The people who set this in motion, he continued, believed I'd respond with force. Alina tensed. I won't, he said. Not yet. She frowned. Then what? Exposure, he said, and collapse. He turned back to her. They've been careful, legal, clean on paper. That's their mistake. Alina stared at him. You've been building this quietly, she said. Yes. For how long? His jaw tightened slightly. 3 years. The number struck her. Why 3? She whispered. He didn't answer right away. When you disappeared, he said finally, it created a vacuum. People assumed it was weakness. Alina's pulse raced. You let them think that? Yes. Why? He looked at her then, not guarded, not calculating, honest. Because the world I built pushed you away, he said, and I needed to know if it was worth keeping. Her breath caught. I was wrong, he continued. I built power before I built protection. Silence wrapped around them. Alina looked at the man standing in front of her. Not the legend, not the title. A man who had prepared for her return without demanding it. A man who had watched from a distance without intervening until a child was threatened. What happens now? She asked quietly. The Mafia boss stepped closer. We work together, he said. Her spine stiffened. No. His gaze didn't harden. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said. I'm asking you not to sabotage yourself. Alina swallowed. And if I refuse? He looked at Mina again. Then they keep circling, he said, and you keep running. Alina's shoulders slumped. She was tired of running. Fine, she said softly, but I make decisions too. The Mafia boss nodded once. Good. He glanced at Mina, then back at Alina. You stay here tonight, he said. Tomorrow we begin. She hesitated. Begin what? He held her gaze. Ending this, he said. Time stretched. Alina exhaled, slow and careful. Then I'm not leaving her alone, she said. Not for a second. You won't, he replied. She studied his face, searching for manipulation. Found none. She nodded once. The Mafia boss turned to leave. As he reached the door, Alina spoke. What were you thinking? She asked, voice low. When you watched us sleep? He paused, didn't turn around. Thinking, he said quietly, that I've already lost 3 years. He looked back at her then, eyes dark and resolved. I won't lose another day. Morning came quietly, not with alarms or raised voices, but with pale light slipping through thin curtains and the soft rhythm of Mina's breathing. The world outside the safe house felt distant, held at bay by walls designed for forgetting rather than defense. Alina woke before fear did. For a brief moment she forgot where she was, forgot the messages, the threats, the way her life had narrowed into choices she never wanted to make. Then memory returned. She lay still, watching Mina sleep, her small hand curled around the stuffed rabbit. The innocence of it made Alina's chest ache. Everything she had done, every lie, every run, every late-night decision, had been for this quiet moment of safety. A soft knock sounded at the door. Alina stiffened. "It's me," the Mafia Boss said, voice low. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then nodded. He entered slowly, dressed simply now. No jacket, no visible armor. Just a man who looked like he had not slept much. "Coffee," he said, setting a cup down on the dresser, "for when you're ready." "Thank you," she replied quietly. He glanced at Mina, still asleep. Something like warmth flickered across his expression before disappearing. "We're ahead of schedule," he said. "They moved sooner than expected." Alina's pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" "It means they're nervous," he replied. "And nervous people make mistakes." Later that day, the strategy unfolded with surgical precision. No raised voices, no violence, no spectacle. The Mafia Boss didn't strike at men, he dismantled structures. Financial records surfaced, shell companies unraveled, quiet inquiries became official ones. Regulators followed paper trails that led to places no one wanted examined too closely. By evening, Luca Moretti was no longer answering his phone. By morning, his employers were scrambling to distance themselves from him. Alina watched from the sidelines, equal parts terrified and awed. "You've done this before," she said quietly as they stood in the kitchen, Mina coloring at the table. "Yes," he replied, "but never for this reason." She looked at him. "And that reason is?" He glanced at Mina. "Protection," he said. By the third day, the threat collapsed in on itself. News traveled fast in whispers. Accounts were frozen. Allies disappeared. The man who had tried to use a child as leverage found himself without leverage of his own. It ended not with a confrontation, but with silence. The kind that followed something final. Alina expected relief to feel louder. Instead, it felt heavy. "You're safe," the Mafia Boss said that night. She nodded. "For now." "For good," he corrected. She studied his face, searching for certainty. "And what does that cost you?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. They sat together on the couch, Mina asleep between them, her head resting against Alina's shoulder, her feet brushing his leg like she belonged there. The silence stretched. "I'm stepping away," he said finally. Alina's breath caught. "From what?" "From the Empire," he said simply. Her head snapped toward him. "You can't." "I can," he replied. "And I will." "That world is who you are," she said. He shook his head. "It's what I built when I had nothing worth protecting," he said. "Now I do." The words settled into her slowly, carefully. "You're not doing this for me," she said. "No," he agreed. "I'm doing it with you." She searched his face for doubt, found resolve instead. "I won't disappear again," she said quietly. "But I won't live in your shadow either." He nodded. "Good." 6 months later, the world looked different. Not safer, just steadier. The house they lived in wasn't hidden or grand. It existed. That was its power. Neighbors waved. Mina went to school. Alina worked again, this time without fear woven into every decision. The Mafia Boss was no longer a title whispered behind closed doors. He was just a man who attended school events and fixed loose cabinet doors and listened more than he spoke. One evening, Alina stood in the doorway and watched Mina struggle with her shoelaces. He knelt in front of her, patient. "Slow," he said gently. "You rush when you're nervous." Mina huffed. "I'm not nervous." He smiled faintly. You are. She finally tied them and looked up, proud. Dad, she said casually, can we get ice cream? The word hit Alina harder than she expected. Not because it was forced, because it wasn't. He glanced up at Alina, searching her face, not for permission, but for reassurance. Alina nodded. Only if you finish your homework, he said. Mina groaned dramatically, then laughed. Later that night, after Mina was asleep, Alina leaned against the kitchen counter and let the quiet settle. Some loves don't survive separation, she said softly. He looked at her. Ours needed it to grow. She smiled then, slow, real, unguarded. Outside, the world continued as it always had, dangerous, unpredictable, unforgiving. But inside their small, ordinary home, something rare had taken root. Not power, not fear, choice. And that, Alina knew, was the kind of love that lasted